I'm Daniel, I'm a sleep physician, and if you want to sleep amazingly, this channel is for you. Super excited about this first episode in a mini-series, which will become a playlist in which we explore how your mind works to give us a framework for how to get past insomnia and any other problem you will face. In this episode, we start by talking about emotions. Welcome back. Hope you're doing really well. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into exploration of this model that we are borrowing from the life coach school, Brooke Castillo. And I want to give credit where credit is due. My wife, Jamie Robert, has taught me really everything that I'm going to present in this first exploration of the model, in which we were talking about emotions. Now, check this out. Everything you do because you want to feel a certain way or not feel a certain way. Every action you take in your life is because you want to feel a certain way or avoid feeling another way. That just right off the bat, that shows us how important emotions are. And if you never thought about it that way, just kind of query your mind when you hear that. Everything you do is because you want to feel a certain way or not feel a certain way. It intuitively feels true, and it tells us again how important emotions are. Now, that said, the next thing we're going to jump through here is the fact that there is a spectrum of emotions that are the human experience. There are the blue feelings, the blue emotions, feeling sad, feeling anxious, feeling scared, frustrated, etc. And then we have the yellow emotions, happiness, being happy, being excited, being joyful, being hopeful. And again, that spectrum is the human experience. If you meet somebody that's from Botswana or Switzerland or Norway, they all know what sadness is. They all feel the same way when they're happy. We all have that spectrum of human emotion. That's just built in, and that's who we are. Now, what's important to know here is that we are hardwired to avoid the blue and pursue the yellow. And if we think about it from an evolutionary perspective, we can see why that is the case. Going back a couple of thousand years when we were hunter-gatherers, this was literally life and death. Avoiding blue, pursuing the yellow was literally life and death. If you were, out gathering, herbs, and there were, pack of wolves nearby, then avoiding the blue, following what the fear tells you and running away was literally a matter of life and death. And similarly, on the yellow spectrum, like that excitement, the hope, of really being able to hunt down that mammoth and make it fall and then feasting on it, that's the yellow. They were really going for the yellow there, right? Again, matter of life and death. Now, fast forward a couple of thousand years, a lot of things have changed, but our brain is still very much a hunter-gatherer brain. And now that hardwiring of escaping the blue, pursuing the yellow causes a lot of trouble. Not when we're in the yellow zone, when things are going well, no problem really. But once we start hitting the blue zone, that's when problems arise because of that hunter-gatherer instinct, the hunter-gatherer brain that we're still carrying with us till this day. What happens is when we experience blue, when we experience sadness, anxiety, frustration, fear, we still try to avoid it. And when we avoid it, a bunch of negative things happen. And the first thing I want to bring up here is that, anything that you resist persists. When you're constantly resisting the blue, you're teaching your brain, reinforcing to your brain that it is something that is to be avoided, that it is something dangerous, that it is a threat, and blue grows. That's number one. Number two, when you avoid blue, that leads to buffering behavior or coping behavior. For example, You don't want to feel sad, so you have a couple of beers. You don't want to feel anxious, so you binge eat, or you may resort to drugs, so you're binge watching things, And that behavior, again, reinforces that the blue is something to be avoided, and it grows. And that behavior in itself can be harmful, Alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, etc. in themselves are negative. So there are two problems with that, avoiding blue within number 2 here. Number 3, you are avoiding positives when you are trying to avoid the blue. And that could be, there was a party you were invited to, but you think you're going to be anxious, or you think you're not going to be able to sleep well. You're avoiding blue, and thereby you avoid a positive that could happen, a really nice gathering, something that would have been exciting, fun. Or it could be a challenge. You have a presentation, you're afraid of anxiety, and you skip that. You avoid it. You avoid a chance to do something that would have led to growth. And finally, when you're avoiding blue, you're also avoiding the reward that comes when blue turns to yellow. When you have that presentation again, and you have that blue that's coming up, you're feeling anxious about it, but you do not avoid it. You go through the presentation and you do well, and blue turns to yellow, you're excited and happy. If you had, completely avoided the blue there, you would have also avoided the positive that comes afterwards. So there's big reasons not to avoid the blue. So we've seen here in this talk about emotions that they're super important. All our actions really, everything we do is to feel a certain way or not feel a certain way. We're hardwired to try to avoid the blue, and that causes a lot of trouble. The thing here is that when you're not avoiding blue, when you are willing to experience any emotion that's part of that human experience, when you're willing to experience any emotion, you can do anything. And that concludes our first part of exploring this model. I'm planning to do one video a week where we build a model right here on the easel stand. And in our next episode next week, we're going to talk about thoughts. Until then, take it easy and stay in touch.